You're listening to Brave Girls with Tracy M., where we choose to empower you to be a better leader, mentor, and coach in the world. We'll share stories of people who have achieved great heights by overcoming adversity and rising to the challenge, all while pursuing their passions. These courageous people will inspire you to have faith in yourself and take bold action. Right here with the host of Brave Girls, Tracy M.
Episode 60, Build a Ministry with Kelly Leonard. On today's show, I'm happy to introduce you to former corporate executive, super connector, and the B.O.O.S.T podcast host, Kelly Leonard. Her Brave Girl story is inspiring and motivational on so many levels. Kelly studied accounting in college and became a CPA, but quickly figured out that she didn't have the personality of an accountant. She shifted to a role in corporate training where she's worked with government agencies, nonprofits, private and public industry. Very much a people person, Kelly thrives as a speaker, coach, consultant, and trainer. On the show, she talks candidly about how she dealt with personal challenges when she transitioned out of the corporate world and into being a small business owner. We recorded this episode earlier this year, and she shares her perspective on what she learned in the last 13 years as an entrepreneur. She's a wealth of knowledge around LinkedIn and how to use it to promote your brand and value to the world. Just last month, she became the director of training for Cook Ross, a management consulting firm based outside of Washington, D.C. She continues to feed her inner Oprah as the host of the Small Business Network, a television show that supports the Metro D.C. small business community. I love Kelly's philosophy of build a ministry and how it inspires her body of work in the world. A true servant leader, Kelly is wise beyond words. To learn more about Kelly, go to her home base, kellytleonard.com to learn more. So let's go and learn why we all need to build a ministry.
So welcome to Brave Girls with Tracy M. I'm excited because today we have Kelly Leonard with us. And Kelly is the CEO of Taylor Leonard Corporation, T-LC. After a very successful career in corporate, she's out there doing all kinds of entrepreneurial work. And I'm just so excited that I got introduced to her by Elise Barnes, who is another one of our guests. So welcome to the show, Kelly.
Thank you, Tracy. It's awesome to be here.
Yeah, so I know you're an author, you're a speaker, you're a consultant, you're a TV show host, and you're really started with your Fortune 100 corporate executive role, I'm sure. So that's not really where you started. So it looks like you went to VCU.
Yes.
And you started as maybe an accountant.
Yeah, imagine that. Yeah, so it's funny. I often I laugh at that when I think of the path that I've gone through, because people will, when they meet me, they're like, "Really? You're an accountant? You know, you're a CPA by trade?" Because they're like, "You're not your typical accountant." I was like, "Yeah, you know, I left my pocket protector in my my eyeglass, you know, my little all those fun things that accountants are known for. I left those at home." So yeah, it's interesting. I learned pretty quickly that field was one that was so rigid and really didn't allow me to serve people or to just really connect with people in the way that I really feel like I've been purposed to do. So initially out the gates, it was a great move for me because, especially from a business perspective, it's great to know debits and credits and all that good stuff, your financials and cash flow. And so those fundamental pieces have served me well, but I haven't practiced in quite some time.
Right. Yeah, I think it's true. Understanding the fundamentals of business, I'm sure, helps you, because I guess your show is the Small Business Network. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. So yeah, that's a program. We're in our 9th program season, and it's been an amazing journey because, quite frankly, Tracy, it's funny, when I first left corporate, this whole notion of networking and relationship development was a little bit foreign to me because, of course, I was accustomed to, you're in corporate. If you're not on the sales side, it's kind of, you know, your customers are given to you, so to speak. And so, transitioning out of a corporate environment into more of an entrepreneurial role where you've got to do that business development and the networking and things like that, it was really foreign to me and actually quite uncomfortable initially. And so one of the things that I did is I really immersed myself. I dove into what was really uncomfortable, and that was attending lots of different events. And so through that process, I got to learn really quickly the things that I liked about events and the things that I didn't like about attending events. And then I took the best of what I loved about the different events, the different networking events that I participated in, and I took those elements and then extracted the things that I didn't like about it. And then I just created my own event. And, through the years, again, it just mushroomed into what is now called the Small Business Network.
That's great. And then the focus of the TV show is to really bring people together from just like a regional economic development standpoint and showcase them and things that are going on out there with different companies. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I always say, and the people that attend the show pretty regularly, I'm probably very robotic when I say it. I say, every month we bring the business community together to connect, to collaborate, and to share best practices in an effort to stimulate regional economic development. So that's really the purpose of it is, it's a way for us to come together in a relatively small group setting. On any given month, we have anywhere from, let's say, 30, 40 up to 60 or 70 people that participate in this event. So it's networking, it's breakfast, but then we also have an educational component that we integrate where we bring an industry leader or thought leader around a topic area, and we share that information. So it's not just the connecting with people or the networking, but it's also, okay, what element of that event can someone take away and practically and immediately apply inside of their business?
Right. Oh, that's got to be really helpful for small business owners because you bring it all together for them.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So like last week, because it was Valentine's month or love month, our episode was all around couples that work. So this notion of navigating life as a couple in business, because we've got so many couples where either one of, the couple, someone in that relationship perhaps is a business owner, an entrepreneur, or maybe you have both. But oftentimes I hear where couples will say, oh, I can never work with my spouse. They would drive me crazy. And so, having that conversation around, well, what does it look like very practically to navigate life and business as a couple that works? So it was a really fun conversation. This month coming is actually all about podcasting. So how to generate revenue through podcasting. So we always try to have some sort of timely, relevant topic that, again, the listening audience or the participants, because it is a live event, but then we also do live stream the educational component. And then the educational component is also turned into the 30-minute television program.
That's great. And another thing I noticed on your entrepreneurial journey is that you have a trademarked methodology called B.O.O.S.T. So talk about that and how you came to create that and what that exactly does.
So B.O.O.S.T. is a methodology. So, okay, let me back up a little bit. So part of what we do is we support our clients. Initially, when my husband started the company, we were created as a boutique CRM, customer relationship management shop. So essentially helping our clients to understand how to use technology from a sales, marketing, and service perspective. As social media started really coming on the scene, so many of the clients started saying, hey, how do we really thoughtfully leverage social media as a way to expand our reach for our branding, business development, et cetera. And so because so many of our clients at that time were in the government space,
Yep.
They, by and large, had a greater appreciation or comfort level for LinkedIn. And so we started initially internally thinking about, okay, well, if we were going to really use LinkedIn to increase our business success, what would that process look like? And so we then birthed eventually, long story short, B.O.O.S.T. So essentially helping our clients to use LinkedIn to build their brand, to optimize relationships, to obtain more leads, to secure thought leadership space, and then tap into new markets. And so the interesting thing is that we developed that internal methodology and applied it. And what we found is we had won over $500,000 of new consulting revenue within about a 2-year period just through the LinkedIn community. So this is people on LinkedIn looking for, whether it's project management or CRM support, things like that, looking for those things, finding us, and then us putting them through this process, and or reverse side where we knew who our ideal buyer was. How could we very thoughtfully approach those individuals, build relationships to ultimately tap into new markets and to increase our business success?
That's great. That's something that I think people know they have to use LinkedIn, but they don't take the time. And if you have that framework or that methodology to step them through, and you can see from start to finish. So I'm sure that's very helpful to them as they're looking for leads, looking to be established as a thought leader, all of that, produce content, all of that. So that's really, really good. So your clients then are government agencies, nonprofits, and then even publicly traded companies.
Yeah, but our sweet spot, our passion is supporting entrepreneurs and small business. Us being a small women-owned business, you sort of gravitate to what's familiar. And when we look at business in general, we all, whether we're a large corporation, Fortune 100, Fortune 500, or a very small company, we all have similar challenges. It's just, oftentimes small businesses just don't have the resources to address those challenges. And so really my heart is supporting small business and entrepreneurs. But yes, we do serve government as well as nonprofit, for-profit entities.
Right. And then you've got some really marquee names behind your resume with GE Capital, Kaiser Permanente, and PricewaterhouseCoopers. So, the biggest of the big is where you work. So You've seen that side of the equation as well. And you've probably been a buyer on that side of the table as well as now you're a supplier.
Exactly. So it works really well. And not only that, it's great because especially in the small business community where we love to serve, it's being that resource, that consultant who can speak to them from the perspective of an individual having that familiarity and experience, expertise in serving global, very large multinational organizations.
Right. Well, the procurement process is the procurement process, right? And it just gets more bureaucratic and complicated the bigger the organization. And so how you sell yourself into those organizations, how you present yourself on LinkedIn is important because they're going to look at that.
Absolutely. Yeah, because it's almost the equivalent whenever we're chatting with people on this very topic. It's the equivalent of like 15, 20 years ago. If you and I were to meet for the first time and I were to say, hey, Tracy, buy my widget. And you're like, oh, and you look at my business card and you're like, well, what's your website? I'm like, oh, I don't have a website. You immediately marginalize, well, are you really in business? Because if you were really in business, you'd have a website. And so same thing on LinkedIn, where, a lot of folks in the business community understand why they should be there, but oftentimes they're not showing up with their best self. And they're expecting the business community to embrace this less than version of them. And so it's always an interesting conversation because I'll talk to folks who perhaps they've got all the bells and whistles, maybe they're paying premium for LinkedIn or they even have Sales Navigator and they're like, oh, I'm so frustrated with LinkedIn. And I often have to, sort of educate them around this whole notion of, okay, right now you've got a Ferrari engine, but you've got the body of a Pinto. And so we really want to tweak your brand a little so that you have the body of a Ferrari to match that supercharged engine that LinkedIn is giving you through all these different premium solutions and services. Because if not, it really is just not going to serve you well. You're not going to recognize your return on investment because of the fact that people are going to first judge what they see, the appearance of, okay, is this person's profile what we call alive? Is it accurate, locatable, impactful, value-based, and engaging? And if it's not those things, it doesn't matter that you've got Sales Navigator and all these great things. Yeah, you may have, this endless pipeline or this list of people that you could potentially call into. But as you reach out to them, they're making a judgment call about the fact that, you just don't look like what you say that you're able to help me with.
Correct. Yeah, it's got to be fully aligned. Like it's all got to be synced up so that If you say, I can deliver this consulting package, and then they see, okay, this is an organization and a company that can do that, what they say they can do.
Yes.
And they're just throwing their money away buying the sales navigator and the premium and all that if they don't even have a good foundation.
Right.
Of
Absolutely.
like optimizing even just your basic LinkedIn profile.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So on your journey, you also have some community-based activity in your partnership with Nehemiah Project. So talk about that and kind of your philosophy around serving others, because clearly you have that in your blood.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's funny, Tracy, that whole journey and the partnership with Nehemiah Project is one that we were faced with conflict in our business and in our marriage, my husband and I, because as I mentioned, so my husband Jerome had started the company, and then I came on board. When I left GE, interestingly, they decided to stop paying me, because that's what happens. You leave your job and your direct deposit stops. And so it was this new world that I was thrust into of entrepreneurship, where you've got the ebbs and flows of cash flow and revenue and all that good stuff. And, coming from a really strong 6-figure salary, it posed a huge sort of culture shock to us. And so we were faced with some financial challenges, and that starts spilling into relationship and other things. And thankfully, we were thoughtful enough to just slow down to say, you know what, we shouldn't be doing this alone. Like, something is just not working here. And so we went to a spiritual mentor of ours and shared with him what was going on, really initially with what was going on in our marriage. And he just dug deeper and said, you know what, I want you to do me a favor, just humor me. And I want to introduce you to this gentleman named Patrice Sage, who's the founder of this organization called Nehemiah Project. And so, we met with this gentleman, and he shared with us what Nehemiah Project was created to do. Ultimately, it's a nonprofit training and coaching organization that provides Christian entrepreneurs with access to capital. But beyond that, the training element and the coaching is really what we found to be transformative in our life and in our business, because up until that point, there was a bit of a separation, or we were operating in a silo where we sort of kept our faith life and our work life very separate by and large. But the way that Nehemiah Project approaches business is really this whole life integration, where you combine your faith life with your work life. So to really this notion of build a ministry, so to speak, inside of your business. So building up an enterprise that really honors God and honors the relationships that are nearest and dearest to you. So being able to build an ecosystem inside of your business that grows a business beyond the traditional triple bottom line of people, planet, and profitability, but really looking at what's the transformative or eternal impact that business is having on the entire business ecosystem, including the business owners, who technically are the stewards of the business, or the managers, their staff, their vendors, suppliers, their family, their local community, the local church, etc. So really looking at what's the impact that business enterprise can have.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. I love that philosophy. I love that you turned to a spiritual mentor who then turned you over to the founder of Nehemiah Project. The fact that they were able to help you, get you to combine faith and life and work all and not as these silos, and then teaching you to build a ministry. I absolutely love that.
Yeah.
So now you're just giving back to the organization.
Exactly.
You.
Yes. Yeah. So giving back a lot, and it takes on different forms. I mean, we do have, we're very intentional about giving back, whether it's, time, talent, treasure. And we're just, now that and it's integrated into the way that we just do business, the way that we market our business, the way that we build relationships. So, this whole life integration has really meant, it's transformed the way that we view our family as well as our work life as well.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, the world needs more of all that.
Yeah.
That's phenomenal. That's phenomenal. And then you're really active in all of your different advisory groups, chambers of commerce,
Yes.
the leadership program. So talk a little bit about that. That seems really interesting too.
Yeah. So, well, specifically, I'm assuming you're talking about Leadership Montgomery, which has been awesome. So yeah, it's funny. Like for years, Leadership Montgomery was a client of ours, and then I had clients who had gone through Leadership Montgomery, which essentially is a 10-month program that really is designed to infuse existing or aspiring leaders into just really understanding what's going on in your local community. So whether it's from an economic development perspective, an education, safety, all of these different elements that go into a community. And so it's funny, I thought for as long as I've been here in Montgomery County and been really involved that I knew sort of all the inner workings of the county, but I walked away learning so much, and it really just gives you a better sense of just a better appreciation for really what goes behind the scenes to just make sure that we are living a quiet, peaceable, just livelihood. So, you just sort of take for granted that when you flick the lights on, they're going to come on, or when you dial 911, that someone's going to be there for you. And so was really cool to just see how the dynamics of how all those different pieces work. It's like this magical dance that takes place behind the scenes to run what I think is the largest county in Maryland.
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah. And then you got a couple kids, a couple teenagers.
Yeah.
So what's that like, being the mom of teenagers?
Depends on the day of the week, and it depends on which child you're talking about. No, it's fun. It's fun. So our son is now a freshman in college. So, so that's been fun. The house has been a little bit more quiet as a result of that. And then we have a daughter who she's a junior in high school. So they are amazing kids, both of them, or young adults. I can't say kids.
Right. Well, and they're facing such a different world than when we grew up with social media and 24/7 media and tech. And, I'm glad I didn't grow up now.
I know. So many different distractions. We were literally just having this conversation not too long ago around, there was a time when, the clock struck like 11 and there was no TV. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like no TV, like it was white noise and like a blurry screen, like none of that stuff. So, and it really forced you to slow down and to just breathe and reconnect as family or it was just a simpler time. But it's interesting because then some people will say, times are so bad now. And I'm like, I don't know that times are so bad. It's just that we have more awareness, like just because of media and just accessibility to information with the internet, that we just know about more. We didn't know what was going on in other parts of the world, or if we did, it was like a week later. So we were trying to play catch up. And so, it's an interesting time that we live in. But I mean, I'm so hopeful. There's always, we've got to always look at the glass half full perspective in terms of whenever challenges arrive, whether they're economic, social, or what have you, that's opportunity, huge opportunities for people to step up and make a huge difference.
Right. So did you grow up in Virginia?
I did. So I was born in Richmond. I was actually the first Black baby born in St. Mary's Hospital in Richmond, Virginia.
Oh.
Yes. Yeah. So my parents were both from Richmond, and my dad, almost immediately out of college, was recruited by IBM. And so we headed north. And so I spent most of my childhood in New York State. And then eventually my parents relocated just to Northern Virginia, to Manassas. So I went to high school in Manassas, college in Richmond, and then eventually, just sort of planted roots here in the D.C. metro area.
Right. And that's where you worked for these large companies in the D.C. metro area?
For the most part, yeah, because Kaiser Permanente, GE, although I did a stint in New York for GE as well. When Jerome and I first got married, we lived in Long Island. And so fortunately, with the type of work that I was doing, I had the ability to live essentially wherever because I traveled so much. So DC is where we call home.
Right. Well, that's great. And then you also said you had a podcast?
Yeah, so I just launched my podcast. It's called the B.O.O.S.T podcast, and we just launched it in November, and it has just been so much fun. I was actually with my sound engineer today, and we recorded a handful of new episodes. We record so we release twice a month.
Okay.
So we're up to episode 10 is what we're working on, which we'll release next week. But we were running through the numbers today, and so we've had over 3,500 downloads. So I'm excited that I'm like, well, someone's listening. So that's always
good
to just see the progress.
What's your topic, or who is your audience that you're trying to talk to, and what's your topic?
The audience it's interesting. So it's by and large business professionals and entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. And with the subject or the title of it being the B.O.O.S.T podcast, every conversation has something to do with some element of that trademark solution of B.O.O.S.T. So not necessarily LinkedIn specific, but it's, every conversation has something to do with building your brand, optimizing relationships, etc. So it's been a lot of fun. And fortunately, because of the Small Business Network, the television program, I have permission from our public access television station here, Montgomery Community Media, to repurpose some of my conversations from the television program. So that gives me some ready inventory as well. So that is really fun.
That's amazing. That's really good. Yeah, that's a good stat. And keep doing what you're doing, because it's impacting people. I like podcasting just because of the conversational aspect of introducing and educating people and getting to know people like you who I wouldn't normally know. But
right.
And I think podcasting is really taking off. I think that there's becoming more female podcasters.
Yes.
Than maybe even 2 years ago. And so I have always been a really avid podcast listener. I listen to business ones, I listen to inspirational ones, and sort of like once you find one that you like the host and you like the topic, then why move around, right? If you're gonna be putting stuff out twice a month, then I know to look for it when, or even subscribe.
Right. Yeah. It's been a lot of fun. It's been it's funny, for years a friend of mine was like, oh, you should start a podcast. You start, and it's one of those things where initially I was like, it was intimidating, quite frankly. I was like, I don't know, like the equipment and this and that. And then finally one day I was like, you know what, I'm going to try this. And ever since then I'm like, wow, what was I waiting for? It's a lot easier than what I thought, or at least the mechanics of it is a lot easier than what I had kind of talked myself out of for a little while.
Yeah, I went to Podcast Movement before I got involved, and I came away and I thought, heck no, that was so overwhelming, because it was like big name people that were at this podcast convention basically talking gobbledygook. And so for the longest time I was just like, no. And then I realized, you can always outsource stuff, right? Yes. So like, I'm not an audio engineer. I'm not a sound engineer. I can hire somebody to do that. And so once you figure out, what your intentions are, setting your intentions, behind what it is that you're trying to do, then it's not hard.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But I think that's, part of the challenge that we as women, for sure, probably, it's like, let me put on my superwoman cape, I can do all things and be all things to all people anytime they need me. And so, it's this, it will be overwhelming if we try to do it all. But it's recognizing and being willing to say, you know what, let me delegate. It's okay.
I'm the queen of outsourcing. I'm like, that is not my zone of genius.
Yes.
Operate in my zone of genius.
Absolutely. Yeah. I agree.
So my finale question that I always ask every guest is, what's the bravest thing that you've ever done, and how does it inspire you today?
Ooh, wow. Bravest thing I've ever done. Oh my goodness. What's the bravest thing? Probably leaving GE. Especially, it's funny when I gave my notice, people were like, why are you leaving? Like, what are you going to do? Why are you leaving? And I was just like, oh, I'm going to go, I'm going to start this entrepreneurial. And they're like, okay. And the killing part, Tracy, is it was 2 weeks before our annual bonuses were going to be paid. And so people are like, why are you doing this? Like, why aren't you waiting 2 extra weeks? And I'm thinking, well, I could do that. But like, if I already know that I'm leaving, is that a really nice thing to do? Like, I wanted to be in this place where if I'm going to make a bold move, I want to do it and not like, I don't want to light the city on fire. And then people are like, wow, that was really cruddy of you. If you knew you were leaving, like, and you took this money, like, I didn't want anyone to ever have to say anything negative about me. Like, my desire in life is that if anyone ever hears something negative about me, that they're going to look at the other person and they're going to say, you know what? I know enough about Kelly that can't be true. Like, just shut your pie hole, because that can't be true. And so I think that's definitely way up there with the bravest thing. And especially then having to have the conversation with my parents, who of course grew up in a different generation where it's like, both of them, they retired from, my dad only had one employer his entire life, and he's got a sweet pension to show for it. So,
right.
So even having that conversation, that was a pretty bold move and daring as well. But yeah, I think that was probably one of my bravest moments. And then what was the second part of the question?
How does it inspire you today?
I think it inspires me today by just this whole notion of you're going to be all right. Like, it's not the end of the world. And the words of my beloved, recently deceased grandmother would say, one monkey don't stop no show. So it's like, one job don't stop no show. One client doesn't stop no show. It's like, we put so much faith in that one thing. But, I happen to believe that we live in a world of abundance. And so it's like, what's the worst, I guess, that could happen?
Right. No, I think I love that. One monkey don't stop no show. I'd never heard that. That's awesome. That's brilliant. I love it. My grandmother used to always say, this too shall pass.
Yes.
She used to say that all the time, because I would get all upset about things, and she'd just look at me and she'd go, Tracy, this too shall pass.
Yeah, that's another.
But that's amazing. Well, if you wouldn't have taken that bold move and that brave move and walked away from GE, which I'm sure your parents thought you were crazy, as well as your coworkers, you wouldn't have the 9th season of the Small Business Network. You wouldn't have the B.O.O.S.T podcast. You wouldn't have Taylor Leonard Corporation and Kelly Leonard Consulting. You wouldn't have the B.O.O.S.T methodology that's helping thousands of people. You wouldn't have all of your affiliations like Leadership Montgomery. So, the list goes on. So clearly it was the right move.
Thank you. And I wouldn't have had an amazing conversation with a person like Tracy, who just lit up my world just now by running through that list. So I just applaud what you're doing, and just that you're walking in this place of grace and boldness, and just that you're inspiring and equipping so many women. So I applaud and thank you for everything that you're doing.
Oh, thank you, Kelly. I'm just so glad we met, and I just think you're a brave girl, and keep doing Kelly, because the world needs more Kellys. The world needs more women like you who are out there transforming other people and, really helping other small business owners, other entrepreneurs, other government agencies, corporations. You're doing really great work out there, and I love that you've built a ministry. I really love that.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Brave Girls with Tracy M. as much as I did creating it. Each show is produced with you, the listener, in mind, as you look for inspiration and motivation from other brave souls as you pursue your desires. I'd love to hear your feedback, so please leave me a review on iTunes. I read every one. And check out my website, tracym.com, for more free resources. You can also join my list and sign up for my newsletter right from the homepage. Until next time, stay strong, believe in your dreams, and go do something brave.
We appreciate you joining us for this episode of Brave Girls with Tracy M. and hope that you enjoyed the show. For more information about today's episode, as well as additional free resources to help you achieve greatness in your life, visit tracym.com and sign up for our mailing list. Until next time, dream big, believe in yourself, and let your brilliance shine as only you can do.